Hello, hello. I'm hoping I'm live here, using a new platform for the video. My name is Jeanette, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about flower essences and what they can teach us about healing ourselves. And I'm just so happy to be here and sharing this information. If this is new for you, welcome. If you've been working with flower essences, then hopefully I can share something new. If you have anything that you would like to share in the comments, I invite you to participate and contribute. But yeah, so I'm coming to this today for a number of reasons. One being that I've been compiling content for a video I'm doing for my friend's online educational platform. So I've posted a link for that in the description box. I'm going to be providing more for the videos that I'm doing for her, but it's called the Rogue Map, and you can read more about it if you click on the link and see what she offers there. That's Tyler Lewis's project. It's phenomenal. But yes, also flower essences. Why else are they coming up today? I have been working with them for a number of years, but I would say the past year or so, they've become a lot more relevant in my life because they've been showing things to me about myself that I can take a step further through my healing. And I really feel that because our collective right now is going through so much is coming up to the surface right now. We're doing a lot of shadow work, looking at aspects of ourselves that maybe we didn't want to see before. And flower essences can be really helpful there. But they are a form of vibrational medicine. So I'm going to touch a little bit first on how I was first introduced to flower essences, but then I want to describe somewhat what vibrational medicine even is and how it's integrated into our bodies if you're not familiar with that type of therapy yet. And I'm going to focus quite a bit on the Bach flowers. I'm not going to break them all down individually, but I do want to showcase a couple that I found to be really relevant in healing. Some of my personal favorites. I'm going to use some examples from myself and what I've learned about myself and how I've applied the flowers. But my ultimate goal with this is to help anyone watching this to understand what emotional accountability means in healing the physical body too. I've posted some links up in the description box. Actually, I don't know if it's above the video or below, but wherever you're seeing it, I've got some links in place there that I'm going to get into a little bit. I've also added some books, and when I finish the video, I'm going to go back in and add the links in for the books if you want to order some or look into them and think about getting some to add to your library because they're very, very valuable. As you can see, I'm at my house right now, and I have a ton of books behind me. This is my library that you can kind of see a little bit behind me. I have more upstairs, more in my bedroom. A lot of them focus within the realm of holistic healing. There's a lot there on vibrational medicine, plant medicine, the esoteric. So looking at a lot of these beautiful mysteries of life and understanding them through a point of higher awareness. So I have a lot of wonderful books and quite a few on the flower essences. So I definitely wanted to share those with you guys today. But flower essences came into my life. I was initiated into their work at the very beginning of my studies to become a traditional naturopath. So that's what I do. That's my office job. And when I was in school, the flower essences were a part of the curriculum. I had my own course that I had to study regarding them. And from the very beginning, they were really pushed as something very relevant. Though it wasn't until, like I said, recently in the past year that I've truly seen their value. However, while taking the course and then also in the student forums, there's a lot of dialogue between us as students and then the teachers and those who are practitioners to understand how important they are to healing and emotions. And so that was something that would come up all the time in the student forums. People would present cases. We would talk about how we would approach it. And consistently over and over and over again, our teachers were saying, check emotions, check emotions. We need to look at that. And so that was actually the first time that I was even introduced to the idea that emotions were so relevant in healing the body. Natural health, when I first got into it, I thought, oh, it's about eating a certain way, working with the plant medicine, maybe some additional therapies that we can bring in that are holistic, that are not going to harm the body. But the idea that emotional work was involved and to such a significant degree was very new to me. But because it was something that they really put in place as part of our foundation to become naturopaths, it stuck with me throughout the whole gamut of working as a naturopath. But I have evolved through that process. When I first got started, I had a list of emotions that I would give to clients to have them look over. It was part of their intake form. And I just want to add really quick, if you guys leave any comments, I will try and check in with them afterwards. I'm really bad about seeing them while I'm talking, but I'll get into them later and try and answer as I can. But, and like I said, feel free to add any input you have regarding the flowers. But yeah, so I would start with this checklist as part of the intake form. So I was looking at physical symptoms in the body. I was looking at lifestyle practices that the person had, but also this list of just like, what are you feeling right now? What do you have going on? And then I would pair it with the flowers. And at that time, I got my first Bach flower kit. I had it ready to go. I was making custom tincture blends of the flowers for clients for them to take. And I got a fairly good response. I was also learning using them on myself, using them on my children, using them on animals, which, as you know, there's no placebo effect with animals. So that they're actually a phenomenal way to try out vibrational medicine when you're first learning it to see how they respond. But so what was happening during all this, I was leaning pretty heavily on the checklist. I evolved away from that for a little while. I got to be better at just sitting with the person, sitting in their energy with them, dialoguing with them, learning about what it was that they were really feeling, and then creating a tincture based off of that. So I didn't want to use the checklist so much as a crutch, but it was a really good way for me to learn. I was working purely with the original 38 Bach flowers, which I'll talk about a little bit in a moment. But I also was integrating my bioscan system. So that's a frequency-based assessment tool that I use in my office that will check the frequency of the meridians in the body. So when a client comes in, I can scan them. I can also do it remotely. But so it looks at the meridian strength, is it strong? Is it weak? Do we have some chronic issues, acute, that sort of thing? It also has a massive database of frequencies. It's a virtual library of energy, and it'll pair these frequencies with the person to see what brings them into a healthier energy, what kind of plumps up those meridians, gets things flowing a little more naturally, gets the person feeling good, and the flowers are in there. And so the flower essences, I was working with them that way. I still do, scanning through to see what comes up for that person, what emotions they might want to work on. And I also have a few more that I bring in, other flowers from other countries that are in that database. But yeah, that's how I really got started really working with it. And now it's at a place where it's a very intuitive practice. I create the custom blends of the flowers for my clients based off of what they're telling me, what I'm picking up. It's really beautiful how all it flows together. And what I'm seeing with the flowers is they are really creating a shift in consciousness. And that's what's so incredible about them, because as a therapy, what they're doing is they're actually accessing our consciousness, our state of mind, our free will, and they're acting upon that. And so there's really not a lot that we have in medicine that is going to create that kind of shift. They're coming in, they're taking negative behaviors, negative emotions, and they're actually alchemizing them and transmuting them into something lighter to help that person so that they can kind of get themselves out of a stuck spot, essentially, and shift up and then just keep progressing through their healing. And that's what I love about them, because they're not going to come in and do a full miracle amount of work where they just wipe the slate clean of all your issues that you have going on. But they're going to come in, they're going to create a support in place. They'll transmute some of that energy for you. But what they're ultimately meant to do is to come in and say, look, you need to look at this. You can't avoid it anymore. You can't hide it and suppress it. It's here for a reason. And you need to take care of it, because you need to be accountable for what it is that you are storing in place that's creating all of these blockages. A really fascinating book that brought a whole new level of awareness to me in terms of working with the flowers is this one here. It's called New Bach Flower Body Maps. It's my body map book. And what I love about it is that it came in and showed me that the physical body, when we have things occur like on the surface level of the physical body, on the skin, or even underneath the skin, but in a specific location, that there is an emotion and an energy tied into that specific location. So I'll get into this just for a minute. The pictures in here are fairly detailed, so there's a lot. This isn't something you want to show a small child. But what it does, I'll show you an example of the face here. So you can see how the face is all segmented there. And each little segment partitioned off, there's a number. That number correlates to a specific flower. And it's actually like this for the entire body. We've got the numbers all over. And then each spot just ties in to one of the 38 flowers. So really, really beautiful what this means. And I want to describe that more, but I realized that I didn't get so much into the vibrational medicine piece and the definition of that for you guys, so I need to do that first. But vibrational medicine is energy. That's all it is. And so we're applying energy to the body, our etheric fields, our energy bodies, and our physical body in order to see a shift and a change. And the shift and the change can be purely energetic, or we can see a shift within the physical as well. Vibrational medicine works on our vital life force that we have and our consciousness. And examples of this are the flower essences. We've got gemstones and crystals. Sound therapy is a form of vibrational medicine. So is color and light therapy. And of course, homeopathy. So if you're accustomed to working with homeopathy, that is a prime example of how energy works on the body. But what happens when we bring one of these energies into our field? It becomes integrated through the body. First, say you're taking a little tincture dose. Say you're taking a dose of your flower essences and you're putting them in the mouth, taking them. You want to hold it in your mouth for a few minutes, if you can, a few moments to allow it to integrate. But what it does is it enters in and accesses our vital life, our vital force through the circulatory system, and then our consciousness through the nervous system. And so it's all merging together and interfacing. And then from there, moving out throughout the meridians, which are a way to amplify our life force throughout the body, as our energy meridians that we have. And then move through our subtle bodies and our chakra system as well. And so it can take a little bit of time, but you know, we're an energetic being, and this kind of thing works very, very well, especially as you keep moving up and ascending through your spiritual awakening. This type of therapy and medicine resonates much more easily than it would have, say, like 5-10 years ago. But so the vibrational medicine works that way. And another thing that's worth pointing out is that we are like a crystalline structure. And so we have quartz, we have crystal-like structures within the body, cell salts in our tissue, like our lymphatic, our red cells, our white blood cells, everything, our glandular system, like there's crystalline quartz structure integrated all within that. That's helping us to receive this energy throughout and communicate throughout. And so that's one way to describe it, the vibrational medicine. There is no crude form of the original substance involved. In homeopathy, we extract the energy. We get it from, say, like a plant or a mineral or an animal. With the flower essences, we get the energy from the actual flower blossom. But the blossom itself is not present any longer in the tincture, in the stock bottle that you get of the flower essences. It's just pure liquid energy, which is really beautiful. But back to what I was saying with the body maps, because this is where things really get tied in. I think everybody should own this book. A number of reasons. It's really hard to just Google the images. You're not going to find them very well online. It's worth it to have this book in your library. I have it here at home, and then I also keep it at my office. I reference it all the time. Basically, anytime somebody has something manifesting through the skin, as we all do at various points, whether it be, say, like a rash or acne, even something that appears accidental, say like an insect biting you or stinging you, a bruise where you bump into something, a splinter, or you stub your toe, anything that's happening on this surface level of the body, when you body map it and find that corresponding emotion, you will find that that is something that you actually have to address. You actually need to take care of, and it's calling your attention to it. So how does that work? And I've been using this for years, and I just see it proved over and over and over again. I've actually never seen it wrong, which is fascinating to me. And it opened me up to this whole idea of there are no accidents. There truly is a lesson in everything. There is an energy that we need to acknowledge when we have something happen to the physical body. So really good examples of this, I'll give you beech. So beech is a flower essence that is one that's highly relevant right now. This is a flower essence that's for people who are having trouble tolerating other people. And what we're seeing play out in the collective right now, there's a whole lot of that. People are disagreeing with each other left and right. Like we have this polarity of extremes that are playing out. There's the I'm right and you're wrong, and I will always be right on this, and you will never be right. Okay? Like there's just that extreme polarity that's playing out across all the different timelines that we're seeing right now in the collective. So beech is a phenomenal flower essence to access for this because it helps us to tolerate better the people in our lives, the choices that other people are making, the way they're behaving. It helps us better understand that. Beech is also wonderful in the physical realm. If you have a situation where you're intolerant to things in your environment, like your allergies or you're allergic to certain foods, things like that, it's a perfect flower to take for that. And then it's also indicated for sciatica because sciatica is actually a physical symptom of the person when they're intolerant of others. So really interesting there. I had it come up for me recently. I got a splinter on my finger. Of course, I body mapped it because I've learned to do that pretty much every time now. And I realized, yep, I was coming up for beech. And I fully understand that. Because even now, I've done a lot of work. I'm really trying to see and understand everybody from where they're coming from. The environment right now, especially on social media, is very triggering. And it's hard to see people where, I'm in a place of peace and understanding of how things are happening, but I see people who are very upset and they're very triggered by other people's words and actions. And they're just kind of playing out their fears there. And I see, okay, they have work to do. They have something to address internally here so that they won't be spewing it out on top of other people. And when I get like that, I'm in a place of judgment and I'm not so much in my observer witness place that I need to be. And so that's why beech, it comes up for me. None of us are perfect. We still have stuff we got to work through. But in my role that I'm doing, where I'm putting a lot of information out there, I'm trying to work as a guide and act as a guide for people right now. I really have to be reminded, okay, you can't throw judgment on someone. You need to allow them to experience it as they will, and help them as you are guided. So that one's been really relevant for me. The flowers, the 38 flowers. I feel like I've been all over the place with this video. That's okay. What are they? Let me get with that first. So Dr. Edward Bach, he was a physician and a biochemist over in the United Kingdom. This is back, he developed the flower essences back in the late 1920s, early 1930s. So he'd been in the medical profession for a while. He segued into homeopathy at one point. He's responsible and well known for developing the bowel nosodes that we use in homeopathy. He helped develop vaccines. So he knew a lot about using very tiny doses of substances to help heal people from sickness. But he got to a point during his own spiritual awakening where he went and he really got into the flowers. I think he found two initially. They may have been impatience and mimulus. And he began working with them and channeling information and understanding what it was that they were here to teach and show. And then over the years, he developed more. And so he had 38 in total. And then he was also known for developing the rescue remedy, which is a combination of 5 flowers. This is the one that most people are first introduced to when they get into flower essences. Rescue remedy, you'll see it at the health food store, you'll see it at Whole Foods. Very, very popular. And some people will swear by it, but I've also met a lot of people that say, oh, it doesn't work. I don't understand. It didn't do anything for me, which unfortunately happens a lot in holistic. But the reason that one is like that is because he developed that for acute anxiety. And anxiety is very prevalent in our society right now. It's like an epidemic in a sense. A lot of people have it at a chronic nature. And so they'll go and they'll get this and they think, oh, this is going to alleviate my anxiety. Let me just take this every day. Rescue remedy is actually indicated for people in a more acute stage of anxiety. Say like if you're in a car accident or if something happens very suddenly. That's what it's really developed for. But it will also help people who are in fight or flight a lot. Sometimes if they're just living in fight or flight all the time, sometimes they will respond very well to rescue remedy and they can take it on a regular basis. But more often than not, they don't. And so that's a sign that maybe we need to dig a little deeper and look at some of the other flowers. Because the other 38, as individuals that he developed are really incredible. They address all kinds of things. So they'll look at, say, anything that can be a block to your healing. So making a decision. A lot of people have trouble making choices between things, using their discernment. So we have flowers for that. We have flower for repetitive thinking and OCD and overanalyzing things, too much in the mind space. We have ones for too much daydreaming and not being anchored enough in your reality. Flowers for helping you open up and come out of your shell. If you're the kind of person who's very shy, very introverted, but to the point where it's just holding you back, water violet. So that's one that's going to help open you up a little bit more. People who are very stagnant in a place in their life where they're stuck and they're not moving and we need some shift, we need some momentum going. So I've got flowers for that. Flower for being overwhelmed. Too much going on in your life and just too much coming down on you and needing some peace, needing some quiet. Ones for, thinking too much about others, worrying too much about your loved ones and taking care of your loved ones and not bringing that focus back on yourself. So we have that. We have, there's just so many. There's ones for increasing vitality, ones for helping alleviate worry, or if you're in a very morbid state of mind, very doom and gloom, they can lift you up out of that as well. And so there's really something for everybody, and that's what's so incredible about them. And I know I mentioned other flowers too, aside from the Bach 38. And there are, really any flower you can imagine. I've got this lovely rose here with me. I love roses. This one's from my yard. But the practice of working with flower essences did not start with Dr. Edward Bach. He's phenomenal for bringing this work to light, but really they go way, 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 way back. And this is where things are going to get a little different, because if you are like me and you study the teachings of ancient Lemuria, that's actually where the flower essences were first integrated in working with humans and understanding them. The doctrine of signatures that we use in herbal plant medicine and looking at plants and how they relate to the human body and the human consciousness. In ancient Lemuria, all of this came down into our awareness that we are all connected. We all were designed from the same source, because the plants, once you really get into it, there's no denying that they are very much designed to look a lot like us. When we there's certain plants that are so perfect for our too much mental energy, too much space, and too much time in the mind, like needing that grounding down, that rooting down, needing to bring a little bit more density into us. Because I'm speaking about me, I tend to burn out and just expend way too much energy up here in my mind space. So I work with plants that root me down. And then we'll have some where people are just very dense and stagnant, and they don't have a lot of movement. They don't have a lot of flow. And so we need to restore flow and movement into them. And you'll find that there are plants that mimic that and how they're designed, and then the actual elements within them, be it like air and water and fire and earth are all very dominant in them too. And so it's just beautiful if you get back into those Lemurian teachings to see how all of this came about. And then it was during the times of Atlantis where the flower essences were finally brought in as a form of medicine. And the way that I'm speaking about them now, like people were learning how to use them to address physical issues in the body, emotional issues of the body, and they were using it to help them become accountable and responsible for what they were feeling. Because what the flowers do is you can, I'm sorry, got stuff popping up. You can just take the flower essences in their little bottle, the custom blend, they're in there with spring water, you take it. Frequency is really important. You want to take it several times a day because what you're working on is the mind. And so you need to keep reminding the mind with that energy. It's not so much just one giant dose once a day. You want to have some repetition there. You can put the responsibility in that bottle and it'll create a shift. What's actually interesting is you might see a little bit of an amplification in it initially for a few days, and then it levels out as you balance. And the flower helps transmute that energy into a lighter frequency. So it can take you out of that low vibrational pattern of any of those things I just mentioned, and it lifts it up. But what happens is if you don't really, truly address it and look at it and become accountable, and if it's deeply rooted there enough, it's not going to fully go away. It's still going to be an issue. So the flowers are coming in to assist with that, but they're really trying to get you to look at what it is that you need to work on. And like I said, that all of this started ages and thousands of years ago, but Dr. Edward Bach is responsible for bringing the 38 flowers to light. There are also the Australian bush remedies, so I work with those. Really beautiful exotic flowers that come in from Australia. I have those kits at my office and I will use those for folks. Sometimes they come up with the bio scan when I'm scanning people, and sometimes they just come up intuitively as I'm working with someone. What's neat about the Australian bush flowers is that they tend to go a little bit deeper than the box. So sometimes the shift isn't as obvious. It's not as quick when we work with them, but it just takes a little bit more time. It digs a little deeper. And there's some really beautiful, like, lilies and orchids and these more exotic lush plants that come from that lovely environment in Australia that we see with these. But basically any continent, anywhere you live, all these flowers are going to embody emotions to help us. We have like the flower essences that are here in North America. And these are not ones that I am trained in. I would love to be, but I've really just learned to love the box so much that I work with them a lot. A lot of those flowers we do have in the United States too. But yeah, it's limitless. And working with the flowers, you know, this vibrational nature, it's like I said, it's in other continents, so the Chinese and India, you see it all over. And it really takes a sort of evolution of consciousness in order to understand them, but you don't have to be there in order for them to work. So if some of this is still kind of like, oh, this is strange, I don't fully understand the frequency aspect of it, if you're still willing to try it and draw this energy in and see how it applies to you, it'll still work. I mean, technically they'll even work on someone if they're asleep or if they're unconscious. They'll work really well. Children, I did link a book in the description box for children if you want to work on them there. They tend, because their vital force, like animals, is strong, they will bounce back and heal more quickly through vibrational therapy than, say, adults. Because what we have, sorry, I just hit my mic, but what we have the ability to do, unfortunately, is that we can override vibrational medicine with the mind. And we do this through anxiety or stress or just thinking something's not going to work and putting a lot of negative intention towards it. We can actually completely override it. You're not going to see children and animals do that. They are much more open to this type of thing, so they do respond very well to it. Whereas I've seen adults override stuff, so something to be aware of. But if you want to add some fun books to your library, I have this one here. I absolutely love it. It's a huge spiral-bound book. It's got a ton of flowers in it. It's got a lot of the ones that we have here in the United States, a lot of herbs that I work with that we all know. They're in here because it's not just, you know, the medicinal properties of the plant, but when they have that flower carries that emotional energy. And like I said, so the flower represents, or it'll be correlated to a negative behavior or negative emotion, but it carries that both of those energies. So it has that positive correspondence to it as well, that it'll create that transmutation between the energies for you. And here I am doing all this talking, and I have my book that I really, really love right here. This was my first one. And this one's great because it has an area towards the back. Like, it has a huge chunky chapter for each book, so you can, each flower, so you can read about all the flowers. But then when you go towards the back, you can get to an area where it's comparing between two. So if you don't know how to decide between two different flowers, it's going back and forth between them. So I love it for that. But let me get a little bit more into this accountability piece. So if you want to get into them and start working with making them in blends and doing all of that, I've put some information in the description box on how to do that. And I think that's a wonderful way to get started. But the accountability piece, oh good, I got some comments. So the affirmations, I've also popped there into the description box. The affirmations are what I use with adults all the time. And go ahead, if you get into this, print them out, keep a copy with you. And the affirmations are going to have the 38 Bach flowers in place. And then they're going to have, you know, underneath the flower, there's going to be a series of different statements under each one. And what's important to know about these statements is each one carries the same frequency as the flower. And so if you have your little tincture bottle, and I'll grab one, or stock bottle, I should say, of rock rose that's got the frequency of the flower in here, those statements for rock rose that are on that affirmations PDF that I've linked carry the same frequency as this. And I really feel that if you can go more towards the affirmation side of it versus just taking something from the bottle, you're going to be putting yourself in a place of owning the work and being responsible. And so that's why I really tell people, look, let's look at this first. I'll make the custom bottle for you, but I want you to look at these statements and pick the one. So you're going to have one that resonates more than any other. That's the one that you're going to say to yourself every day, at least 3 times. And it's better to say it out loud, but if you just want to say it in the mind, that's fine. But you just want to remind yourself, you know, 3 times throughout the day. You know, like I was saying, you got to have that frequency, do it a couple times, repeat that effort so that you're just reminding the mind that it needs to pick up that energy and that frequency. You, of course, can also create a paper remedy out of flower essences. You can write the affirmation on a piece of paper. You can put the name of the flower essence on there. You can look at a picture of the blossom. So then this also carries that frequency. I mean, do all of that. Meditate with this picture of the flower in your mind, and that's going to have that frequency brought in as well. Excuse me. But so what I would love to convey more than anything is that the flowers really are here to show us the work we need to do for ourselves. The affirmations are very, very powerful. And I mean, really, you want to look. What you want to do is you want to look at where it comes from. So if you're carrying this energy and you know it's not great and the flower's highlighting that for you, look at the source of where it comes from. I'm going to use myself as an example again. So one that I used to get all the time was pine. Pine should be like the flower of my life. Like, there's a couple of them, but that's definitely one that has and actually it's a tree, obviously, but you'll see that a lot of them are originally from trees. But pine is for people who are very hard on themselves. And so that was like my thing my whole life. Very hard on myself, doubting myself, not worthy, feeling like I wasn't doing a good enough job. I carried this well into my career as what I do now as a naturopath, because I was often just comparing myself to other practitioners and thinking, why am I not doing that type of protocol? Why am I not doing that level of work? I need to be doing this. I need to be doing that. I'd finish up with a consult and be like, oh, I just didn't do enough of this or this. Like, that is pine talking. And so I've had many situations where I've had like something come up, like a mark on my skin, a cut that wouldn't heal, a bruise, a breakout, anything showing up in a pine spot, because I would body map it and then there it was. So that came down for me to worthiness. And now I never get anything tied into pine, because, and I shouldn't say never, because never say never, but I'm in a place now where I understand that what I offer to clients and what I'm doing in my profession is authentic to me. It's what I'm good at. It's what I'm meant to be doing. I offer a lot and I understand it all well. And that's who I am. And I'll attract the people that need that type of work. And that whatever else anybody else is doing, that's for them to offer to people, and they'll have that receivable exchange, and it doesn't, I don't have to be exactly like anybody else. And so pine has really shifted out for me. There were times where I would say the affirmations for pine. So if you click on that affirmations link and you see that, I had one that I can't remember which one it was, but I would say it all the time. Creates a shift, but really I had to do some even deeper work there. And another one is holly. So that's one that's been really big with me. Excuse me. Holly, hello, throat chakra. But holly is for anger and resentment and bitterness and jealousy. So jealousy is another one. And that, gosh darn it, there's been so many times where I've like stubbed my toe and it's holly, or I had something where this ring actually that I have on my finger cut my hand all the way down to the bone, my other hand, but seemingly accidental, but I checked the spot. It wouldn't heal. It took forever to heal. My kids are all worried about it. Holly is another one that I still have coming up, because there have been situations in my life where I now am at a place where I can see the full benefit of them. But at the time, the trauma of it, the situation of it, it was so easy to sit in victim mentality and say, this person made these choices that put me in this position, and they did not do what they should have done if they had really honored me. And I'm talking about more than one situation, more than one person, but things that occurred that over time I didn't address. So it built up resentment, built it up, layers upon layers of just this yucky ego. Not that all ego is bad, but there's just aspects to it that were not healthy. And a lot of anger and resentment is stored in the liver and the gallbladder as well. So I had some physical issues there with digesting fats, and I would have gallbladder pain. And holly just consistently comes up for me. And so I've been doing the work. It is getting better. I'm absolutely at a place now where I have gratitude for all experiences I've had. I've forgiven myself. I've forgiven others, and realized that everything happened exactly the way it should have, or else I wouldn't be where I am now. And so that was a huge one for me, and working with holly and that flower. And when I'm speaking about that one, it's purely, I never took it in tincture form in a little liquid flower essence. I've always worked with it purely as just a frequency that I've called in. And what I mean by that is that any of these vibrational forms of medicine that we use, the flower essences, the colors, the light, the gemstones and the crystals, sound, homeopathy, we can access any of these frequencies from what I call the 0 point field, or the tachyon field. And that's just how I envision it. There's a field of just energy waiting to be created basically by the mind. And we're fully capable of doing this. So if you're not already actively doing this, consider this video an activation to kind of open that up to you now. And a way I like to describe it is, think about when you learn how to color as a child with all the different crayons from the crayon box, and you're learning all the different colors. When you take them all and color them all one by one on top of each other, it eventually turns black. And that black contains all the colors of the spectrum within it. And so that's kind of how I envision the tachyon field, where the energy originates and where you can draw from the 0 point, is like a black space where I'll pull that frequency in. And that's how I've worked with holly. I also have a massive holly bush out in my yard. It's enormous. And I've dialogued with it. It's invited me out there before. I've sat with it. You know, it's a prickly thing. It's a prickly bush. It's got prickly little leaves. It doesn't feel good, but I've sat with that energy, and I've really learned to process through a lot. So yeah, that's what these flowers are doing. They're alchemists, but in the sense that they're forcing us to become inner alchemists for our own emotional work. And through this, we can create sorry. I get all these messages on Messenger just popping up. I need to figure out how to make that stop. But yeah, we become these alchemists because of what the flowers can teach us. And they are just so much more powerful than I ever gave them credit for when I first started learning. Like I said before, when you look at something that's capable of creating a shift of consciousness, there's not that much that can do that for us. There's not much there that can actually like override free will. That's what they're doing. They're addressing the ego. So for those of you who are out there, you're on your spiritual journey and you're like, yeah, I got to take care of some stuff here. Look at what the flowers can offer you, because that's why they're here. They are the part of the plant that is the most enlightened. And enlightenment is a word I don't throw around too much. The most aware part of the plant, because if you look at the plant, it starts with the seed and it grows and it grows, and through the mixture of the sun and the water, you know, the masculine and the feminine, and then the earth, it becomes this plant, and eventually it rises and it blooms. You know, it's associated with the crown and this higher level of consciousness. And I'm saying all this and I keep looking at this beautiful rose. But this is the plant in its etheric mind. It's where it possesses the highest frequency in all of the plant. Now, when making flower essences, you can use stems and you can use leaves and buds, but you really want to use the blossom when it's like, oh my gosh, I can't even, this thing smells, and this flower smells incredible. It really does. I had to take a little pause. But if you're ever interested in making your own flower essences, it's actually really easy, especially if you have them in your yard. There are a few things that you want to kind of have in place, which you probably will if you're drawn to making flower essences yourself, but it's that connection with plant consciousness. You want to be dialoguing with the plants and the devas, the energies that are responsible for even putting them in your yard in the first place. There's a lot going on that we don't see with the two eyes, but as we ascend, we can see a lot more through here in the mind, and feel. And so you want to be able to feel and connect and speak and communicate with these plants and these flowers. But making them is really easy. There's a book I stuck in at the description box that talks about flower essences and vibrational healing. Very, very powerful book. It lines up everything there for you on how to make the flowers, leaving them out in the sun. There's also the boiling method, but the sun is usually preferable because you get those amazing light codes at the same time from the sun. And yeah, so we're talking about something. It also contains all of the information for the plant. It's got the pollen there, what's responsible for creating more. And so it has just like so much beautiful information carried within this blossom piece here that is then brought into that frequency that we make with the tinctures. So if you guys have any questions, I've been talking a lot. I've been all over the place, which is what happens. Channeling for me is sometimes very fluid and direct, and sometimes it's hot mess express, which it kind of feels like today a little bit. I kind of wove you through this. It was a weaving little garden path there, you guys. So thank you if you're still with me in terms of understanding them. But yeah, they're here for a purpose. I love having flowers in the home. I love seeing them outside. I've always believed that's a huge piece of their significance, is that they're meant to interact with our environment and we're meant to look at them and see them. But to know that there's so much more information they can translate to us that is directly tied into our own soul work. I mean, you can't even deny it. Once you really get into this, get this guy here and this book. If you get these two, and you start body mapping yourself and start looking at stuff, or maybe say like a flower, you keep seeing it on the side of the road on your morning commute, if you are driving to work right now, that flower keeps popping up. So look at it, look at what it's trying to teach you to address, and then actually dive in if you're ready to, and do that work. And you will see that all of this is intertwined in this incredible, beautiful web of life. And anything you can do to just integrate the plants and the flowers more into it, like you just will start to embody more reverence for the creation of this earth and everything that's here. I mean, it's just simply incredible. And I hope this has been an informative video. And I'm going to go ahead and peace on out here because I've got a significant amount of work to do in my own garden. It's Taurus season, you guys, right now. So beautiful spring day here in Virginia. I have some amazing, like I have a whole core group of purple flowers that I'm getting ready to put into some garden beds around a fairy fountain I made. I have this luscious fairy and a little fountain. And yeah, I'm going to work on that. Purple is one of my favorite colors. It's a lovely color of higher awareness. I have a lovely chevron amethyst here too. That's one of my friends that decided to sit with me and help me pull through some of this information today. But yeah, I'm going to go get to work on that. And thank you guys for hanging out with me today. If you have any comments, leave them in the comments section. If you have any questions, I'll try and get to them. And I'm going to go ahead and post those links for those books for you guys too. All right. Bye.